Sometimes the cruelest moments arrive wrapped in the most ordinary circumstances. A borrowed baking dish, an unlocked door, a conversation you were never meant to hear. I'm going to share with you today a story about trust, betrayal, and the devastating moment when I discovered that the people I'd come to love as family had been viewing me as nothing more than a financial opportunity all along. This is about how I learned that loneliness, as painful as it is, can be far more dignified than false affection. My name is Judith Hawkins, though everyone calls me Judy. I'm 76 years old now, and I spent 35 years as a librarian at the Henderson Public Library before retiring in 2015. I've always believed in the power of stories in books, stories people tell, the narratives we construct about our own lives. But nothing prepared me for the story I'm about to tell you, because this one shattered the narrative I'd been living in for 3 precious years. I need to start in 2018, the year my world first collapsed. That was when I lost Richard, my husband of 42 years. We'd met in 1974 at a university library where I was working part-time during graduate school. He was a geology professor, brilliant and kind, with a laugh that could fill a room. We never had children. It simply wasn't in the cards for us. And over the decades, we'd lost touch with most of our extended family. It had always been just the two of us, and that had been enough, more than enough. When Richard was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in early 2018, we had only 4 months together before he was gone. 4 months to say goodbye to 42 years of shared mornings, inside jokes, comfortable silences, and unwavering partnership. I was with him at the end, holding his hand in our bedroom as spring rain pattered against the windows. His last words to me were, "You'll be fine, Judy. You're stronger than you think." But I didn't feel strong. I felt like half of me had been torn away. The months after Richard's death were the darkest of my life. I'd wake up and forget, just for a moment, that he was gone. I'd start to tell him something, turn to where he should be sitting, and find only empty space. The house felt too big, too quiet, too full of memories. I'd go days without speaking to anyone. I'd stand in the grocery store, paralyzed by decisions that suddenly seemed impossible to make alone. Cereal or oatmeal? The brand Richard liked or something new? These tiny choices felt monumental because they were choices I'd never had to make entirely on my own. I'd been living like this for about 6 months when Lisa Harrison knocked on my door one October evening in 2018. Lisa and her husband Tom had moved into the house next door in 2008, and we'd always been friendly neighbours, the kind who wave across the yard, chat briefly about the weather, accept packages for each other when someone's away. Pleasant, but not intimate. They had 2 children, Ashley and Brandon, who were in their early 20s by then, already launched into their own lives. "Judy," Lisa said when I opened the door that evening, "I made way too much lasagna tonight. Tom's watching his carbs and the kids aren't here. Would you like to come over and help us eat it?" She had kind eyes, warm and genuine, or so I thought at the time. She was in her early 50s then, with laugh lines and a comfortable, maternal presence. I almost said no. I'd gotten used to declining invitations, retreating into my grief. But something in her expression, a genuine warmth, made me hesitate. "Are you sure? I don't want to impose." "Impose? Judy, you'd be doing me a favour. Otherwise, Tom and I will be eating lasagna for a week." That dinner was the first real meal I'd enjoyed since Richard died. Tom was friendly and funny, making terrible dad jokes that actually made me smile. They asked about Richard, let me share memories, didn't rush me past my grief. When I left that night, Lisa hugged me and said, "Don't be a stranger. Our door is always open." And she meant it, or I believed she did. Over the following weeks, the invitations kept coming. Judy, we're grilling burgers, come join us. Judy, I tried a new recipe and need a taste tester. Judy, we're watching a movie, want to come over? Tom started showing up to help with things around my house, a leaky faucet, a stuck window, the gutters that needed cleaning. When winter came, I'd wake to find my driveway already shoveled, Tom finishing up the work with a cheerful wave. You don't have to do this, I'd tell him. Neighbours help neighbours, he'd reply with that easy smile. Besides, what else am I going to do with all this snow? By the time 2019 arrived, I'd begun to feel like I had a lifeline again. The Harrisons included me in their Thanksgiving, their Christmas, their 4th of July barbecue. Ashley and Brandon, when they visited, started calling me Aunt Judy. I'd bring over baked goods. I'd always loved baking, and it gave me a purpose again. Lisa and I started having coffee together twice a week. She'd share her worries about her aging mother, her concerns about Ashley's career choices, her pride in Brandon's graduate school acceptance. I felt trusted, valued, needed. I remember the exact moment I started thinking of them as family. It was Christmas 2019, and they'd invited me to spend the entire day with them. I'd brought gifts for everyone, carefully chosen, a cashmere scarf for Lisa, a nice bottle of scotch for Tom, books for Ashley and Brandon. When I arrived, there was a stocking hanging on their mantel with my name on it, right next to the ones for their own family members. "We couldn't leave you out," Lisa said, hugging me tight. "You're part of this family now, Judy." I cried. I actually cried right there in their living room, and Lisa held me while I sobbed out my gratitude, my loneliness, my relief at having found connection again. "I thought I'd lost everything when Richard died," I told her, "but you've given me a reason to keep going." "Oh, Judy," she said, her voice so tender, "we love having you in our lives. You're like the mother I wish lived closer, the grandmother my kids never really had. Your family." Those words meant everything to me. Everything. Then came 2020 and the pandemic. The world shut down, and for many people, isolation became the norm. But for me, paradoxically, 2020 brought me closer to the Harrisons than ever. We formed our own little bubble. I'd help Lisa with grocery shopping. She was worried about her mother's exposure, and I was happy to help. They'd check on me daily, making sure I had what I needed. When Ashley moved back home, unable to return to her apartment in the city, I started teaching her piano. I'd been quite accomplished in my youth, and it was joy to share that with her. "Aunt Judy, you're so patient," Ashley would say, laughing at her own mistakes. "I can't believe you're willing to listen to me murder Beethoven week after week." "Music is meant to be learned, not performed perfectly from the start," I'd tell her. "Besides, you're doing wonderfully." Brandon needed help with his graduate school applications that summer. He wanted to pursue environmental science, and while I wasn't an expert in his field, I was excellent at editing and writing. We spent hours going over his personal statements, refining his arguments, making sure his passion came through. When he got accepted to his top choice program, he hugged me and said, "I couldn't have done this without you, Aunt Judy. You're the best." I felt purposeful again, needed, loved. That same year, Tom's architecture firm hit serious financial trouble. The pandemic had dried up new projects, and he was struggling to keep his small business afloat. He didn't ask me for help. I offered. I knew Richard had left me financially secure, and I had no children to save for, no big expenses planned. What was money for, if not to help the people you love? "Tom, Lisa," I said one evening when we were having our regular outdoor, socially distanced dinner in their backyard, "I want to help with the business. Consider it a loan, no interest, We're family, and family helps each other. They protested, of course. They said they couldn't possibly accept that it was too much. But I insisted. Eventually, Tom accepted $50,000 to keep his firm running. He signed a promissory note because, as he said, "I want this to be official, Judy. I'm going to pay you back every penny. This way it's documented above board. It proves I'm serious about repaying you." I appreciated the gesture, though I told him I wasn't worried. "Take your time. I trust you." In 2022, Ashley came to me with another opportunity. She'd been accepted to a study abroad program in Florence, her dream destination, but she was $20,000 short of what she needed. "I hate to ask, Aunt Judy," she said, looking genuinely uncomfortable. "I know you already helped Dad, and I feel awful even bringing this up." "Nonsense," I told her. "Education is the best investment you can make. I want to help. This is what your Uncle Richard and I would have done for our own children if we'd had them." I wrote the check that same day. Ashley cried and hugged me, thanking me over and over. "I'll pay you back, I promise. Just send me postcards from Italy," I said, "and make the most of this experience." By 2023, I'd settled into a comfortable rhythm. I was no longer the grieving widow, lost and alone. I was Aunt Judy, part of the Harrison family, with a role and a purpose. I had standing dinner invitations 3 nights a week. I helped Lisa care for her elderly mother when she needed an extra pair of hands. I dog-sat their golden retriever, Murphy, whenever they travelled. I brought baked goods to their gatherings. I was woven into the fabric of their daily lives. I should mention that during all this time, I did notice some small things that didn't quite add up. Sometimes Ashley's warmth seemed a bit rehearsed, her questions about my well-being a touch too practiced. Occasionally, I'd catch Tom and Lisa exchanging glances I couldn't quite read when I offered to help with something expensive. But I pushed these observations aside. I told myself I was being paranoid, overly sensitive, damaged by loss. These were good people who'd rescued me from despair. I should be grateful, not suspicious. This brings me to April 2024, and the afternoon that changed everything. It was a beautiful spring day, the kind where you could finally feel winter's grip loosening. The daffodils I'd planted years ago with Richard were blooming, and I'd made a batch of brownies using a new recipe. I'd used one of Lisa's baking dishes the week before, and I wanted to return it along with some of the brownies as a thank you. I walked over around 3 in the afternoon. I rang the doorbell and waited, but no one answered. I tried again, then noticed the door was slightly ajar. This wasn't unusual. The Harrisons often left their door unlocked, and I'd been told countless times to just come in, your family. I'd done it before when dropping things off. I pushed the door open and called out, "Hello? Lisa? It's just me, Judy. I'm returning your dish." No response, but I could hear voices coming from the living room. I stepped into the foyer, heading toward the kitchen to leave the dish and brownies. That's when I heard Ashley's voice, clear and exasperated. "Mom, seriously, how much longer do we have to keep this up?" Inviting Judy over every single week, pretending we're so excited to see her, listening to her stories about her dead husband for the 1,000th time. I'm exhausted. I froze in the hallway, the baking dish cold in my hands. Lisa's voice came next, tired and matter-of-fact. "Ashley, I know it's tedious, but think about what we've gotten from her. $70,000. Your father's business would have failed without that $50,000, and you wouldn't have had your Florence experience without that $20,000. If we suddenly cool things off now, she might ask for the money back." My heart began to pound. This couldn't be what I was hearing. It couldn't be. Tom's voice joined the conversation. "Plus, she's 76 and not in the best health. Her doctor mentioned she has high blood pressure and early signs of heart disease. She told me that herself. The lawyer I consulted said her house is worth at least $500,000, probably more. She has no kids, no close family. If we maintain this relationship for a few more years, continue being her family, there's a good chance she'll leave us something substantial in her will, maybe even the house. So, we're basically playing the long game, Ashley said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. A few dinners a week and some fake sympathy in exchange for a $500,000 payout? Don't phrase it like that, Lisa said, though her tone held no real objection. We are helping her. She was desperately lonely, and we gave her companionship. She needed us. We just also happened to be thinking about our future security. It's mutually beneficial. She gets the family she wants, we get financial security, everyone wins. The key, Tom said, and I could hear him moving around the room, is to maintain consistency. Keep inviting her to things. Act interested in her stories, even when she repeats them. Ashley, when you visit, you need to keep calling her Aunt Judy and asking if she needs anything. Brandon, same for you. Elderly people eat that stuff up. They want to feel needed and valued. It's kind of genius when you think about it, Ashley said. She's so starved for affection that she'd probably pay us just to keep tolerating her presence. They all laughed. They actually laughed. The baking dish slipped from my hands and shattered on the hardwood floor, the crash echoing through the house like a gunshot. The living room went dead silent. Then came the scrambling sounds of people jumping up, footsteps rushing toward the hallway. Tom appeared first, rounding the corner. When he saw me standing there among the broken ceramic and scattered brownies, his face went completely white. Judy. Oh my God. Judy, how long have you? I looked past him to where Lisa and Ashley now stood in the doorway, both frozen, their faces masks of horror and panic. These were the people I'd called family, the people I'd trusted with my money, my time, my heart. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to ask them how they could do this, how they could be so cruel. But my throat had closed up. No words would come. I felt like I was drowning, right there in their hallway, surrounded by the shattered remains of their borrowed dish and my shattered trust. Judy, please, Lisa stepped forward, her hands outstretched. Let me explain. I stepped back, away from her reaching hands. I looked at each of them one final time, Tom, Lisa, Ashley, the family I'd loved, and turned away. I walked out of their house, leaving the broken dish where it lay, along with my broken heart. I don't remember walking back to my own house. I don't remember unlocking my door or going inside. The next thing I clearly recall is sitting in Richard's old armchair, the pearl earrings he'd given me, his last gift before he died, pressing cold against my neck, staring at nothing as the afternoon light faded. 3 years. 3 years of believing I'd found a second family, 3 years of feeling valued, needed, loved. And it had all been a performance, a calculated investment in my eventual death and the property I'd leave behind. Over the next several days, the Harrisons' attempts to reach me were relentless. The doorbell rang constantly. My phone buzzed with calls and texts. Notes appeared in my mailbox, sometimes 3 or 4 a day, stuffed through the mail slot. The first messages tried to deny what I'd heard. Judy, you must have misunderstood. We were joking around, playing a hypothetical game. You know how we sometimes discuss ridiculous scenarios. Please call us. That was from Lisa. When I didn't respond, the tone shifted to desperate apology. Tom left a voicemail, his voice cracking. Judy, I'm so sorry. What you heard was, it was just us being stupid, venting frustrations we didn't mean. Please let us talk to you. You're family to us, real family, let us explain. Ashley sent an email. Aunt Judy, I said terrible things. I was having a bad day, and I took it out on you in a way that was completely unfair and untrue. I do love you. We all do. Please don't shut us out. Don't shut us. I deleted every message without responding. I let the phone ring until they stopped calling. I gathered the notes from the mail slot and put them, unread, in a box in my closet. A week after that awful afternoon, I called my attorney, Martin Webb, who'd handled Richard's estate and my own legal matters for years. I explained the situation calmly, without emotion, laying out the facts. I want to recover the money I lent them, I said. I have the promissory note Tom signed for the $50,000, and I have bank records showing the transfer of $20,000 to Ashley's study abroad program. I want it all back. Martin was quiet for a moment. Judy, I'm so sorry this happened to you. We'll send a formal demand letter immediately. Given the documentation you have, they don't have much legal ground to stand on. The demand letter went out the next day. Tom and Lisa's response came through their own attorney. They claimed the $70,000 had been gifts, not loans, and they had no legal obligation to repay. Martin called me with the news, and I could hear the anger in his usually calm voice. They're claiming the promissory note Tom signed was just a formality, that you never actually expected repayment. They say the money was given freely as gifts between family members. Then we go to court, I said. Judy, are you sure? This will get expensive and ugly. They're going to paint you as a bitter, vindictive old woman trying to punish them for some perceived slight. I don't care what they paint me as, I said. They made me believe I was family while they waited for me to die. I want my money back. The legal process took 6 months. During that time, I learned things about litigation that I'd never wanted to know. The Harrisons' attorney tried every tactic, claiming I was mentally incompetent due to age and grief, suggesting I'd made the transfers as gifts and was now confused about the arrangements, painting me as a lonely woman trying to buy affection and now regretting it. But Martin was thorough. He had Tom's signed promissory note, which explicitly stated loan and to be repaid. He had text messages from me to Tom about repayment terms and whenever you're able to pay back. He had evidence that I'd never forgiven the debt in writing, which would have been required for such a substantial amount. In October 2024, the judge ruled in my favour. The Harrisons were ordered to repay the full $70,000, plus legal fees and interest, on a payment plan over 3 years. Tom and Lisa's faces in the courtroom that day showed pure resentment, as though I'd somehow wronged them by demanding back money that was mine. The first payment arrived exactly on the deadline, not a day early. Every payment since has come the same way, precisely on time, no communication attached, just the legally required minimum. I also updated my will. I met with Martin and made my intentions crystal clear. The Harrisons get nothing, not a dollar, not a piece of furniture, nothing. I want that explicitly stated in the document. Done, Martin said. Where would you like your estate to go? I thought about this carefully. The Henderson Public Library System, I want to establish a fund specifically for programming that serves isolated elderly people, reading groups, technology classes, social events, things that help people connect genuinely, not because they're waiting for an inheritance. Martin smiled sadly. Richard would have loved that. Yes, I said. He would have. But here's what no legal victory can fix. We're still neighbours. We live 30 feet apart, separated by a small yard and a hedge that Richard planted 15 years ago. For the first few weeks after I'd heard their conversation, the Harrisons tried to act as though nothing had happened. Tom would wave cheerfully when he saw me getting my mail. "Morning, Judy. Beautiful day, isn't it?" I'd look right through him and walk back inside. Lisa tried to intercept me once in my driveway. "Judy, please, can't we just talk about this like adults? We've been neighbours for years. We can work through this." I stopped and looked at her, really looked at her. "We were never neighbours, Lisa. Neighbours are honest. You were investors, and I was your retirement plan. There's nothing to work through." Her face hardened then, the mask of friendliness finally falling away. "You're being ridiculous. We did care about you. We helped you when you were alone and pathetic." "There it is," I said quietly. "The truth. I was pathetic. That's how you saw me, and you used that." I went inside and didn't look back. After that, they stopped trying to be friendly. Now, when we encounter each other, getting the mail, taking out trash, pulling into our driveways, we do an awkward dance of avoidance. They look away. I look away. We time our comings and goings to minimize the chances of overlap. I see them living their lives through my window. They still have gatherings in their backyard. I hear the laughter, the music, the sounds of the family events I used to be part of. Ashley visited for Thanksgiving last year, and I watched her arrive with her boyfriend, saw the reunion hugs, the warmth of their family circle. I'm not part of that circle anymore. I never really was. The hardest part isn't the anger or the betrayal, it's the loss. Because even though it was fake, even though their affection was calculated and their kindness strategic, it had felt real to me. The dinners had still been warm. The conversations had still filled my lonely evenings. Ashley's piano lessons had still given me purpose. Being called Aunt Judy had still made me feel valued. When you're desperately lonely, even false love can feel like salvation. And when that false love is ripped away, you mourn it just as deeply as if it had been genuine. I did find new connections eventually. I joined a senior centre that Martin's wife recommended, a place that offers genuine community and friendship. I've met other widows and widowers there, people who understand loss without trying to profit from it. I volunteer at the library where I used to work, helping with literacy programs. I've made friends. Real friends, I hope, though I'll confess I'm more cautious now, more guarded. There's a woman named Patricia who lost her husband around the same time I lost Richard. We have coffee once a week, and she doesn't need anything from me except companionship. That itself is revolutionary. Friendship with no agenda, no calculation of future benefit. But I'd be lying if I said I've fully recovered. I still sometimes catch myself thinking about the Harrisons, wondering what they're doing, missing the rhythm of our old relationship even though I know it was hollow. I'll be reading a book that Ashley would have loved, and I'll think about telling her about it before I remember. I'll bake cookies and my first instinct is still to bring some next door. Those instincts are getting weaker though. Time is doing its slow work. People ask me if I regret overhearing that conversation. They ask if I wish I'd stayed in the dark, continued living in the pleasant fiction of being part of the Harrison family. And I understand the question. There's something to be said for ignorance, for the comfort of illusion. But no, I don't regret knowing the truth. Because here's what I've learned. There's a dignity in reality that no amount of false comfort can replace. Yes, I'm lonelier now than I was when I thought the Harrisons loved me. Yes, my life is quieter, smaller, less filled with social engagement. But it's real. The friendships I have now, however fewer, are genuine. The people in my life want to be there because they value me, not because they're waiting for me to die and leave them my house. When Lisa used to hug me and call me family, some part of me always wondered if I was imagining the warmth, if my desperation for connection was making me see affection that wasn't there. I'd question myself constantly. Was I being too needy? Were they getting tired of me? Was I imposing? I don't have those questions anymore. I know exactly where I stand with people. There's a peace in that certainty, even when the certainty is that I'm more alone than I'd like to be. I have also learned something about the nature of grief and vulnerability. When Richard died, I was so desperate not to be alone that I became an easy target. The Harrisons didn't create my loneliness. They just exploited it. They saw a vulnerable widow with money and no children, and they saw opportunity. The cruel thing is that they probably do think they helped me. In their minds, they probably believe they provided a service, companionship in exchange for money and potential inheritance. They'd probably argue that it was a fair trade, that I got what I needed and they got what they needed. But relationships aren't transactions. Family isn't a service you provide in exchange for payment. Love, real love, doesn't come with a price tag or a calculated return on investment. I think about Richard's last words to me. "You'll be fine, Judy. You're stronger than you think." He was right, though not in the way either of us would have imagined. I found strength eventually, but it came from learning to be alone without being desperate, to value genuine connection over comforting illusion. There's a question I ask myself sometimes, usually late at night when the house feels too quiet, and I can hear the Harrisons' voices drifting over from next door. If I could go back to April 2024 and choose not to return that baking dish, choose not to enter their house at that exact moment, would I? If I could remain ignorant, continue being Aunt Judy, keep attending their dinners and family events, keep believing I'd found a second family, would I choose that over the painful truth I now live with? The answer, surprisingly, is no, because living in that illusion meant living as a diminished version of myself. It meant being grateful for scraps of affection, anxious about maintaining their approval, generous with my money because I was afraid they'd abandon me if I wasn't useful. It meant being poor, pathetic Judy, the lonely widow they were graciously tolerating. Now I might be alone, but I'm not diminished. I don't measure my worth by whether the Harrisons want me around. I don't second-guess every interaction, wondering if I'm being too needy or too generous. I know my own value, and I refuse to accept less than genuine regard from the people in my life. Last week, I saw Tom struggling to carry something heavy from his car. My first instinct, built over years, was to go help. I actually started walking toward my door before I stopped myself. I watched him struggle, eventually getting his son Brandon to help him. They didn't look my way once. I felt a twinge of something, not quite sadness, not quite satisfaction, just recognition that this is how it is now. We're strangers who happen to live next to each other, nothing more. As I sit here now in my living room, surrounded by my books and Richard's belongings and the life we built together, I can see the Harrison house through my window. Their lights are on. They're home, living their lives, probably not thinking about me at all. The urgency of their attempts to reach me after that April afternoon has long since faded. They've moved on, and so have I, in my own way. I've learned that loneliness comes in different forms. There's the loneliness of being alone, which is what I felt after Richard died. And there's the loneliness of being surrounded by people who are only pretending to care, which is what I experienced with the Harrisons. Of the two, I'll take the first. At least it's honest. My advice to anyone who finds themselves in a similar position, newly widowed, vulnerable, desperate for connection, is this. Be careful of people who seem too eager to fill the void in your life. Real friendship develops slowly, naturally, without calculation. Real family doesn't require payment or the promise of future gain. Watch for the signs I missed, conversations that stop abruptly when you enter a room, exchanges of glances you don't quite understand, affection that feels slightly performative. Trust your instincts when something feels off, even if you desperately want it to be real. And most importantly, your dignity is worth more than companionship. Your self-respect is worth more than false warmth. It's better to be alone and clear-eyed than surrounded by people who view you as an investment. Would I like to have a family? Of course. Would I like to have people who genuinely love me, not because I might leave them money, but because they value who I am? Absolutely. But I won't accept a counterfeit version just to ease my loneliness. Richard's pearl earrings are cool against my neck as I finish this story. I wear them every day, a reminder of genuine love, of a man who valued me for myself and nothing else. That's the standard I hold everyone to now. The Harrisons taught me a painful but valuable lesson. Some people will see your vulnerability and try to exploit it. They'll smile and hug and call you family while calculating your worth in dollars. They'll be patient, consistent, convincing, and completely insincere. But they also taught me that I'm strong enough to walk away from false comfort, that I can survive knowing the truth, no matter how much it hurts, that I'd rather have my dignity and my solitude than their company and their lies. So yes, I'm 76 years old and I live alone. Yes, my neighbours, who I once considered family, turned out to be waiting for me to die so they could inherit my property. Yes, I spend many evenings by myself, reading or listening to music or simply sitting in the quiet. But I'm free. Free from the anxiety of maintaining their approval. Free from the nagging doubt about whether their affection was real. Free from the indignity of being viewed as a resource to be managed rather than a person to be valued. The house next door will have another gathering soon. I can hear them planning it. There will be laughter and music and warmth. I won't be invited, and I don't want to be. Instead, I'll be here with my books and my memories and my hard-won peace. I'll have coffee with Patricia on Thursday. I'll volunteer at the library on Tuesday. I'll live my small, quiet, honest life. And when my time comes, which given my age and health may not be too far off, the Henderson Public Library will receive my estate. They'll use it to help other lonely people find genuine connection, not the calculated performance I experienced. The Harrisons will get nothing, just as they gave me nothing real, and somehow, despite everything, I'm at peace with that. Because in the end, truth matters more than comfort. Dignity matters more than companionship, and self-respect matters more than the illusion of family. I learned that the hard way, standing in a hallway with a broken baking dish at my feet and my heart shattering in my chest. But I learned it, and I'm stronger for it, even if I'm stronger alone.